Hello light workers, how are you today? Welcome to Monday. Today I'm going to be talking about spies, crisps, masks, and our plan. Is it fixed? Our life plan? Can we change it? Or is it already planned out for us? I'll see you in the next bit. So I hope you're all well. I want to tell you a few little tales about stuff that's been happening. Just something that was funny that happened the other day. You know, here in Spain, masks are mandatory everywhere, even if you're going through the countryside. However, the only time I ever put one on is when I go into a supermarket because I need to get food for my children. And me, in fact, never mind my children, for me as well. And so that's the only time, but as soon as I get out of the shop, I take it off and we walk. However, the other day we had to go into a town centre. Now, in a town centre, obviously there's a lot more going on. There's tons of people there, the police and all of that. So, of course, here in Spain, the Rona only travels across from person to person when they are not eating or smoking. If they are eating or smoking, they become immune. There's an immunity, and that's why it's always safe to walk through the cafes, walk through the centre of them, because there it doesn't exist and everybody just has the mask off. So you're allowed to eat. Okay? So we had to go to the bank. So what I did was before we left, we got a couple of bags of crisps. Now, I don't eat crisps. Never eaten crisps for years. They're too salty for me. But I opened the bag of crisps, okay? And we got out of the car and I got my bag of crisps, and Cynthia had a lolly. She had a lolly, okay? Because you're allowed to have a lolly as well. And so we walked from the car to the bank, and I had my bag of crisps and I had one crisp in my hand. And that was it. That was my way of getting through, so I didn't wear my mask. And I just carried my crisps, and we were chatting, and I'm waving the crisp around. It's almost like the priest, you know, with the host. I had like my little host there, yeah. Bless you all, you sheeple, you people who are asleep, bless you all, yeah. But it was fantastic, and we walked there, and we walked back, and Cynthia was in the end, Cynthia had no lolly left, but she just had the stick. So she had the stick hanging out of her mouth. Yeah. Nobody said anything. People looked. I've got to say, people looked. But it's more like, I think there are two kinds of looking. The people that go, that's disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting. And then the people that look and go, oh my God, somebody without a mask, isn't it lovely? That's how I feel. When I see somebody without a mask, I get excited. Oh my God, somebody without a mask, isn't it wonderful? Yeah. So that's the first thing I wanted to tell you, just to, you know. But obviously, some of you live in places where it's not mandatory to wear a mask unless you have to go in somewhere, and that's great as well. You know, lucky you. Here in Spain, it's ridiculous. So now I want to tell you about something that came to mind. Right. I know all of the viewers, I know you've spent a lot of time looking into this world, going down the rabbit hole. I know you've spent a lot of time looking at what's labelled the conspiracy world. There is a conspiracy. Yeah, we are not it's not us, it's them. They've been conspiring for a long time. When I first started out 15 years ago, the conspiracy world, the stories were very simple. They were very simple, they weren't convoluted, and there was pretty much one opinion, more or less. You know, it was very basic, like, 9/11 and all the information. It was, yeah. And then what happened, it was that obviously more people got involved, but also there was an infiltration. Okay, they infiltrated the conspiracy world, and so suddenly, or did they? Now, this is what I'm going to tell you. Let's let's backtrack a little bit. When I was working for the man, working for Courtaulds Textiles all those years ago, I was sent on a week's course, and it was called team building. Okay? And it was a course designed to get all of the people together working as a team. And I've got to say that the guy who ran the course was a genius. He had put a lot of thought into it, and boy, did we learn some really important lessons. And there were lessons that I learned that I took with me to go through the rest of my life, really. But there was one thing that we did that really sticks in my mind. It was an exercise that we had to do. We were split up into 3 groups, and the guy who was organising it gave us a little speech, and he said, look, this game was called The Spy. Okay, The Spy. And the idea of the game was this, that we had to form groups, and we had, by way of like clues and things like that we had to go and get from this guy, we had to build a tower. We had to build something. Okay, and the problem was, it was called Spy. Okay, so we all got a piece of paper, and we all had to open it, and it said, "You are not a spy." Okay, everybody got a bit of paper, and obviously it was called Spy. So what happened was, when we got into our groups, I knew I wasn't a spy, but I didn't know who else was and who wasn't. And so the idea was that only one person could go out and get information and come back in. Only one person at a time. And so what would happen, people would go out and they would come in with information, and then we would have this big discussion about whether we could trust the information that they give us, because this game was called The Spy, and we'd all received a bit of paper. The game lasted an hour, and let me tell you, it was the most horrific hour that I've ever spent, because we were this great team by then, but the team dissolved into an absolute disaster. That's all that I could say. It was a disaster. Why? Because we couldn't trust anybody. Every bit of information that we got, it was confusing, it didn't make sense, and so if somebody came in with some information that didn't make sense, we instantly assumed that they were the spy. People were getting violent, somebody was put up against the wall by the throat, and it was an absolute nightmare. By the end of the game, not one of the 3 teams had done anything. We haven't even completed 20% of the objective. Okay, so when we all got taken back together, and we were all really angry. We were, oh man, it was palpable. And the guy read out basically a description of how we were all going to feel. You're all going to feel this frustration, and you're going to be really angry with one another. Probably some of you got violent. And then in the end he said, and so would the spies put their hands up, please? And nobody put their hand up, because there were no spies. And it was a moment of realization of, holy cow, we have just done the worst work that we could possibly do. We have been horrible to one another. We have been distrustful, all because we thought that there was a spy there, and there wasn't. And so what came of it was, we realized that when you do not trust the people around you, nothing gets done. Nothing's clear. People fight one another because they're all frightened that the other one might be the infiltrator. And so what I learned from that, and hey, I learned that, and don't assume that those who know don't know this, because they do. You know, the expression divide and conquer has been around for a long time. And so those people, those baddies, they know that all they have to do is suggest that we've been infiltrated. They don't even have to infiltrate ourselves. Why? Because the conspiracy world is all about kind of trying to pull information together. It's not clear. You don't always know all of the details. And so sometimes you can get it wrong. Sometimes you can say the wrong things. We're all human. But of course, when you're looking out for infiltrators, anybody who makes a mistake is instantly labelled an infiltrator. Anybody who says something that's out of place is like, hang on a minute. Okay? And so I think that's where we are. I think what they've done, and I don't know if there are infiltrators or not, I don't know. I think maybe. But I don't think that's the main thrust. I think really what they've done is they've sown the seeds of distrust, of mistrusting everybody. And so suddenly we're in a place where we don't know who the hell to trust. And so maybe what we need to do is ease up on that. Ease up on worrying about who's the baddie, who's the goodie. And you use your discernment. And so when you're given information, then what you have to do is you have to sift through it and see which bits resonate with you. But because something doesn't resonate with you does not mean that that person is a baddie. It just means that that information doesn't resonate with you. And so you can cherry pick your information. Remember, there is no truth. There are only perceptions of the truth. And so it doesn't really matter. You take the bits that are important to you. But allow people space to do their thing and to say their thing and to make their mistakes as well, because we all make mistakes. So that's why we should be very slow to criticism, and we should be very slow to accusation. Okay? Because we don't know. We don't know. And just the current state of affairs with, who is it? Is it this group? No, we don't agree with this group, and no, we're not going to do it because of this group. All of that is caused by this mistrust of, we're looking for the imposter. And maybe there aren't any imposters. Maybe we're all heading for the same direction. We're all trying to find the same information. Okay, so there you are. Leave that with you. And then I'll finish with a really interesting conversation that I've had with Joe Kelly. Hello, Joe. And also with the guys upstairs. Okay, so it started with Joe Kelly. Joe is an astrologer extraordinaire, right? She did my chart. We're doing some exchange therapy, and so she did my chart, my birth chart, and it was fascinating, absolutely fascinating, and I loved it, and it was very detailed and it was very accurate. And that's when you do, your time of birth, the place of birth, and you look at your sun sign and your moon sign and your ascendant and where all the planets were when you were born. So fascinating. But at the end of it, I said to her, Joe, but what are we saying here? Does that mean that everything is planned in our life and therefore we have no choice? And she said, well, that's a question of the century, isn't it? And people have written books about it, etc. So that was kind of playing on my mind. I was thinking, really, do we just go with the flow and accept that everything's going to happen the way it should happen? So I thought, well, I'll ask those who know, okay, and see what their opinion is. Obviously, when I say those who know, they know more, but they don't know everything. Okay, I'm not saying that everything that they say is absolutely true. They have their opinion, and it seems like a good opinion most times. So I said, is everything planned? Is our life planned, and therefore unmutable, unchangeable? And they said, yes and no. As usual, very okay. It's very difficult to pin them down because that's just the way that they are. But they said, they give me an idea, like an analogy. They said, your life is like a journey, planning a journey. So imagine you're planning a journey and you get the map out and you know your starting point and you know your destination. And so what you do is you plan a route, okay, through the journey. So they said, the route that you take is changeable. The destination is fixed. The destination never changes. It's always the same. But they said, okay, so you plan your journey and you start. Now, typically these days, we use a GPS, don't we? A sat nav. And we pop the destination in and off it goes, telling us where to go. And so we follow it. But I don't know about you, but many, many times I am distracted and I don't hear what the sat nav tells me, or I misunderstand what it's telling me and I take the wrong route. Okay? Now, what they were saying was, when that happens, when it's by accident, what happens is we keep getting a message. And this is what a sat nav does now. You say turn right and you don't turn right, and they'll say, right, so turn right at the next one, and then you don't turn right, and they'll say, well, turn right at the next one, and then you don't, and then maybe there's no more right turns, and so it's got to take you the long way around again. Okay? We can all make mistakes and we can all take the wrong route, just because we misunderstand the signals, we misunderstand what has to be done. But if we listen to the messages that the universe gives us, then very quickly we can get back on track. But sometimes, for example, I'll give you an example. Sometimes the sat-nav says to me, do this, and I think, don't like the look of that road. I don't like it. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go this way. And so I willfully go against what it's telling me. And often that gets me into big trouble. It gets me into a lot of trouble, in fact, sometimes. And that's what happens in our life when we willfully go against the plan. And we know the plan because it's a gut feel. It's a gut feel of, that's the way that I should be doing it. And the amount of times that I've talked to people in my therapies and they said, I say to them, did you have a feeling that this was the wrong person for you? Did you have a feeling that this was the wrong career for you? Did you have a feeling that this was the wrong thing to do, to say? And they always say, yeah, I did. I just knew inside of me, but I did it anyway because it was the right thing to do, because it seemed like a good idea at the time, because I was pressured into doing it. And so we willfully go against the message. Remember, this plan, the sat-nav, the voice of this plan is a very quiet voice. It's very persistent, but it's very quiet. It doesn't shout. And so if there's bigger distraction shouting at you, then often you can miss the message. So that's what they were saying, that sometimes we can make a mistake and we can end up in a place that we don't know, and we can end up going along a road that we don't want to be going along. Sometimes we can willfully take ourselves away and go into somewhere that we shouldn't be. But maybe sometimes we can go into somewhere that's nice and we get to see something. We always learn, don't we? But what they said was that the destination never changes. Just like any journey, we know where we want to be. Quite how we get there is open to a little bit of negotiation. The chart is our best plan. That's the one that we've made up there before we come. This is the plan. This is the combination that I want for my life. But then we get here and shit happens. Stuff happens. And so we don't always follow what should happen in our chart. And remember that the plan sometimes is to take you through rocky roads. It's to take you through back alleys. It's to take you across country sometimes. That's the plan. But sometimes we won't do it because I'm not going to go up that road, as I say. I'm not going to go up that road because I don't like it. It looks too rough. I'll go somewhere else. Okay? But maybe that road was designed to be there in your route because that was where you were going to learn your lessons. And of course, what happens is when we avoid that because of fear or concern or whatever, the lesson just stays there to be learned. And therefore, we have to then double back, and we still have to go along that road, or we have to go along a road that's very similar. And we still have to learn those lessons. And that's what the journey of life is making sure that the lessons that you planned before you came here are learned. And so your guidance system will keep taking you through those lessons until you learn them. And once you've learned them, you won't get them anymore. And I found that in my personal life, that until I learned the lessons, they kept coming back. But then you learn, and then they just disappear. And you're back on track. Okay? All right, so there you are. What lessons in your life have you been avoiding? Or have you embraced all of the lessons that have come? My advice is start embracing what comes, even when it's tough, and understanding. And this is what really makes you feel better. When something bad is happening to you, you say to yourself, I chose to experience this. Okay? It shifts everything. It's a paradigm shift. I chose this. This is in my path. And then when something good happens to you, then you say, I chose this. This is in my path. Okay? And when it feels like you're walking upstream and everything's difficult and nothing is flowing, then you know that perhaps you've strayed off your path and you're heading through some area that you shouldn't be in. Okay? All right. Thank you very much. Have a lovely week, and I'll see you on Friday. Bye-bye.